Starting up, and we should be good. I'm not even going to bother to check YouTube. Hey, Pierce, if you don't mind, give me, if you got a second, pop on YouTube and let me know if there's any problems. If not, I understand. I know you're working. Otherwise, welcome to another episode of the Tao of Talk with Jeet. That's what people have started to adopt calling me ever since I got on here with this Jeet Kune Do theme and or Jeet Kune Show. I initially came back on, set my username to Jeet Kune Show, and people just started calling me Jeet, so I just shortened it to Jeet now.
I like it. I like it.
But you know my name, Brian. We're old friends. We've known each other for a long time. Jeff Mueller,
Old is the key point.
do you want to give yourself a real quick shout out there and just introduce yourself? Say some important things about
Sure.
yourself.
Hi, I'm Jeff Mueller. I have known, I can't call you Jeet. I've known Brian for a majority of my life, which is terrifying when I think about how long that's been. Um, Originally an East Coaster, now out in the Pacific Northwest, doing all sorts of stuff. And yeah, I think we're here to talk about some of it, right?
Yeah, actually, that brings up a really good question. Some things of clarity that I'm not certain of. I moved to Maryland in 1980. I think it was the summer of 1980. I think you predated me. I think you were there before I was, but I'm not
I
100%
was born
sure.
in Maryland.
You were born in Maryland, okay. But I didn't know if you were born there where we lived at the time.
No, I was born right outside of Baltimore, right across the county line, in right near Woodlawn and all that, and then
Oh,
moved to Ellicott City when I was the summer I turned 10. So
right around
so
the
that would
same
have been
time.
82. 82 I moved there. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
How am
Yeah,
I saying those numbers?
now
Oh,
that I'm thinking back, I'm like, I think, yeah, now it's making, maybe that's the Mandela brain or something. I don't know, but I'm thinking back and I think I may have been there a little bit prior to you because Jeff and I
yeah.
met almost immediately and we became really good friends immediately. And then, yeah, I think it was later on when you moved in. So, yeah, that's ringing some bells. But yeah, that's been a long time, man. I was born on the West Coast.
Or
So,
I didn't know that.
yes, I was born in California. Didn't live there
That
long.
explains so much.
A lot of people in my life said I should have stayed there. Um,
What part of California?
Monterey. My dad was in the Navy, so we got.
Why would you leave Monterey?
Oh
It's so
man,
beautiful.
I'd have probably been a completely different person, honestly. But my father was in the Navy, and like I was born, and he was restationed, and 2 weeks later we were on the East Coast, and I pretty much didn't leave the East Coast for. When did we go to Hawaii? That was the first time I actually traveled and left. And that was not until I had kids, a wife, like 30
Wow.
years, 40 years later, something like that. So, but now you're out on the West Coast. You're in Portland, right?
I am. I am
Yeah.
now a Portlandia or Portland. I don't know what they call people out here. I'm still getting used to it. It's
Mm.
a different culture. It's a different vibe than the East Coast, and I kind of stand out like like a sore thumb sometimes. It's very obvious I am not from here.
You'll blend in quickly, I'm sure. You'll figure it out.
No, the East Coast attitude, just the directness that we have, does not vibe well here. It's at all.
I'm not sure if I would take that as a good thing or a bad thing, man. I don't know.
It's listen, I'm proud of being direct and, speaking my mind. It just doesn't go over well here sometimes,
Mm, mm,
but
mm.
that's all right. The people are nice here, though. I dig it out here. I dig it quite a bit.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. It's beautiful, I'm sure. There's a lot of mountain ranges and be-
Yeah. So I originally moved out, I needed a big change in my life. So left Maryland about 2.5 years ago and said, what's the biggest change I can make? So I went from one coast to the other, and went to Seattle. Had a nice little house I was renting right in West Seattle, if anyone knows that area.
mm,
So literally 5 minutes from Puget Sound.
mm,
It was breathtakingly beautiful every single day. Like it, I, I loved Seattle. Would have stayed there if I could have made it work, but the housing market and the cost of living there was just, I mean, it was aggressively unrealistic and oppressive.
mm,
So just couldn't make it work there long term. So then moved down here to Seattle about 6 months ago. So I'm still kind of settling in a little bit. But
Mm,
yes, yeah, Portland's really nice. You just kind of have to get out of the city a little bit to go see the beauty of Oregon.
mm.
Whereas in Seattle, I could walk out onto my porch and see, see Mount
Mount
Rainier,
Hood,
and it was
Mount Rainier.
gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, well, look, we have a lot of crossovers in tastes and likes, and there's a lot of things that we called out in the title there, right? There's martial arts, there's gaming, there's movie may or just creative outlets. I'd say role playing games.
We're nerds.
Well, absolutely. I take that as a badge of honor. Thank you.
Me too.
Um,
I mean, it took me a long time to take it as a badge of honor. But now I do. Now 100% have reclaimed it. Absolutely proud to be a geek and a nerd and all those things that people used to ridicule me for. But yeah, absolutely. A lot of crossover in the interests, I think.
yeah. So what is your so you've done a lot of writing, I think. You said you've done a lot of writing. You publications or um
I mean, recently, that's kind of where my creative energy has gone the past few years is into writing for role-playing games. Um, never writing for me was never something I writing for me was never something I felt very comfortable with.
mm,
I never thought I was very good at it. When I was doing, some more movie-ish acting stuff on the East Coast, people are like, when are you going to write a script? And I was like, that's not for me. Like, I don't want to write a story. Like, I can take someone else's story and I can punch it up and I can feel good about kind of that. But that gestation of an idea isn't really my thing, except for some reason when it comes to role-playing games, which, I've been doing my whole life and whatnot. I can tell those stories very comfortably. Um, so when I started shifting where I wanted to take my creative energy, I realized that writing for role playing games felt very comfortable and easy.
mm.
So yeah, I've been doing a lot of freelance adventure writing and whatnot for different companies and for different other creators over the past couple years. Yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
So like I know I haven't done this stuff in a long time. I'm still interested in it. It's just life has sucked a lot of the creativity out of me. But, um, but so like you mean like modules for like
yeah.
adventures,
I
stories
mean,
to run, things like that, or
modules, source books, things like that. I think the biggest thing that's out there right now was been I guess last year. All the backers finally got their hardcover books in their hand. I wish I had one here. I could throw it on my camera, but they're all down in my game room. It was
we'll do this again, once again, So if you ever want to
fair enough.
punch anything, yeah.
Okay. The Black Ballad, which was a large 10 chapter source book slash adventure module for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
Wow.
Beautiful hardcover book we put out with a company called Storytellers Forge. I was the development editor, copy editor, and one of the main writers on it. So did that recently. Going back and working with them on some other stuff right now that isn't released, as well as working with some other companies and doing chapters of their adventures and things like that, as well as, writing monsters and magic items for, different types of
Mm,
books. And, primarily been writing for Dungeons and Dragons, but also been breaching out recently into some more indie games like Shadow Dark and things like that are kind of gaining popularity. But yeah, I've really been having a good time with that. It's a nice way to honestly, it's a nice way to play role playing games in my head without
actually playing.
playing the game.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like when you were a kid and you were playing D&D, and when you weren't playing D&D with your friends, you were busy planning out your stronghold or your castle. It's like the game outside of the game. That's kind of almost how I look at writing for RPGs. It keeps me in that fun headspace where I like to be, especially in today's trying times. It's nice to have an outlet where I can, hey, this is a hopeful time and we're doing hopeful things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, let me
Mm,
write those things.
that's really cool, man. So Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I'm losing my train of thought here. Gaming, martial arts.
Well, let me
So,
ask you a question.
oh, sure,
What,
sure, sure.
like, we used to game as kids,
A
when
lot,
we
yes.
were youths. We were playing like Steve Jackson's The Fantasy Trip. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, did you ever kind of branch out into other games as you got older? Were there other role playing games you dug later in life, or were you strictly like a D&D kind of guy?
That's an interesting question. So I don't, geez, I don't know how much you remember, man, and I honestly don't know if we ever played together, but we used to play some games that were created by people in our neighborhood, which were like their own versions of D&D or role-playing games, and they had their own mechanics and they had their own world. And there was one called Blood and Iron, I think it was called. You don't remember Blood and Iron at all? Because we used to
I,
talk about it constantly.
I don't
Um,
remember that. No.
mm, I don't. I'm hesitant to name some other names from the neighborhood that you might remember. But yeah, we
Whatever.
used to.
Name them. Put them on blast.
Yeah, I don't know if you would you know Frank Rosso. Do you remember that name?
I remember that name. I can't place a face in my head though.
Hmm. Do you remember a Girth?
I do remember that. Yeah, of course.
He
Yeah, I
was
do
the
remember that.
creator of a Girth.
Okay,
He
okay.
ran the company. He did, he basically ran all the organization and things that we had around that. So yeah, that's Girth for the audience was live action role playing. And not with like metal weapons, but that was padded weapons. You and I played that a lot, and I think then you moved into Darkon for a while too, right?
A little bit here and
A
there.
little bit
I,
here
I
and there.
never got I never got super into it. I would show up like I had a day free and there was something happening, so I would kind of pop in. But yeah, I never really followed the
Mm,
Darkon
mm,
stuff very much. But
mm,
I knew a lot of people that did. That was huge in the East Coast.
mm. Yeah, so we did some D&D. We did Champions. Champions was a good one.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot you also did the champion stuff. I loved champions.
I mean, my sister still plays a lot of these things, and she actually does a lot of like behind the scenes activities. God, if I could remember some of the projects she's working on, there's a game out there. It's a card combat engine. Um, crap. Hectic?
Not a good name for a game.
Havoc engine. Are you familiar with it? It's
I'm
a
not, but I'll
it
look it up after the show.
Yeah, it's I maybe I'll have to put it in the description as well, but give them a little bit of a boost. But yeah, it's a card-based engine, and it basically replaces mechanics like dice, but you use cards instead, essentially. So and it has
Cool,
like
cool, cool.
yeah, it has inventory cards and things like that. So it's like augmenting role-playing game systems, things like that. So um,
Okay,
that's
okay.
all really
Yeah, I'll
cool
look it up.
stuff.
I'm fascinated by that's the one thing, right? So I love writing adventures, but I am fascinated and in awe of people who can design games and come up
Mm,
with game mechanics that work. My brain just doesn't work that way.
mm,
I've tried it and it does not end well. Um, but I have a lot of friends that actually do game design,
mm,
and to me, that's fascinating. Just being able to come up with all the mechanics and have them balance with each other and have them play off of each other so that your game loop is satisfying. Man, it's like wizardry to me. It's just this sorcerous concoction that I don't get, but bravo to people that can do it. Like good on them because without the games, there's no adventures. I wouldn't have things to write. Like
yeah. Mm.
I need a game to write an adventure for it. So that's great.
That's always been the perennial kind of it seems that's always the dichotomy between personalities when you're playing role playing games. There are people who just want to go in and play the mechanics and don't really get into the role playing as much, and then there's people who just want it to be completely role playing and don't really care about the mechanics too much. They're like, we could just make this the mechanics shit part up. We don't need the, you know.
I like a good mix. I'm somewhere in the middle. I find that there is, over the past decade, it seems to be a growing movement where people are like, "Oh, you don't really need the rules; they're just suggestions." And my pedantic brain goes nonsense and shenanigans The rules are there. If you're playing something, like if you go to play football and then someone says, "Oh, but we're not doing touchdowns or field goals." It's not football. Like it's something else. Like just my brain gets angry and I'm like, call it something else then. But so I like having rules, but I want the rules to guide the story. The way I explain, like people ask me all the time, well, I don't understand D&D. Like, what is it? And I always say it's like guided improv. You know, like if you go to an improv show, like the actors on stage will ask for prompts from the audience, and that's what the dice rolls are.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean that's all it is. Like, oh, you failed this thing. Well, now we got to figure out how to tell the story around the result that the mechanic has presented to us. And when you get a good group of people, that can be really fun. And of course, just like improv, you get a bad group of people, it's terribly cringe. But yeah, a good mix of rules versus story personally.
Mm, mm, mm. I like mechanics. I'm sorry. At least and mostly these days.
Okay?
Like
People like
as I
what they
said,
like.
yeah, as I said, I don't have the mind for the creativity as much anymore. But I am working on a game concept, and
Nice.
you're gonna hate me for this because I'm using AI to help me out with building the engine, the strategies, some of the
I
assets.
don't think you want to get into that right now. Don't,
I thought
don't, no, you
that
don't.
might be a good segue. We could get into AI. I mean,
I am aggressively and vehemently against the use of AI. And I say this as someone who works in the tech industry. I work for a multi-billion-dollar company who is very invested in the AI space. And I have spent unfortunate amounts of brain power um, on the topic of generative AI,
Mm,
as well as what people call traditional or discriminatory machine learning AI. I am very pro machine learning AI. I am very anti this modern generative
mm,
AI.
mm, mm.
Yeah, so uh,
So would you
we
make the
can talk about it if
distinction?
you want, but I don't want to bring things down.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, me, I'm like, I can see for me, I see both sides of it, right? I see the benefits, I see the costs, I see it putting people out of work, and it also depends on what kind of AI we're talking about here. There's LLMs, and then there's this concept that we talk about of AGI, which is when features of consciousness or awareness possibly could be emerging, or some sort of self guide, what was self-sustaining autonomous entities, those kinds of things. I mean, is that what are your concerns? Why don't you go over your
I
concerns?
tend to, well, let's talk AGI first. When I speak about AI, I try to talk about its realistic capabilities as they stand now. So AGI doesn't exist.
Right.
Most AI scientists really will tell you it never will exist using the current models of developing AI architectures. It is a science fiction dream. Now, that isn't to say that at some point we won't develop a way to create models that will allow for AGI to happen. But within the confines of how we define and utilize and design AI now, AGI will not occur.
Mm,
Um, so I kind of leave that out of the discussion because to me, you talk about it when it's a possibility, which
mhm.
now it is not. Um, AGI and here's the problem, AGI is it's the carrot that current AI people will dangle because that is an interesting story.
Mm,
That is something where you go, oh, a lot of the problematic issues around what generative AI is today go away with AGI.
mm,
So the people propagating and profiting off of the current models, instead of talking about the issues with what's happening now with AI, will point to this thing. Hey, look over there, because that shiny object over there sounds cool. and it's a distraction tactic. So I don't want to talk about AGI. Generative AI, you know, LLMs and whatnot, all those things, your chat GPTs, your mid journeys, your dollies, these image creation programs, everything else cannot exist without the extensive and unmitigated theft of other people's work.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, right there, that is a hard stop.
Hmm.
Um, the the co-chair of OpenAI has openly said repeatedly, our model falls apart if you don't let us just steal everyone's work so that they can profit while the
Right.
artists see nothing. To
Mm.
me, and I'm not talking about the ecological impact of AI. I'm not talking about the absurd amount of money being dumped into it that could be spent elsewhere. I'm literally talking about the theft of other people's intellectual property. To me, it's a no starter. If you were to go to a car dealership and they're like, "Hey man, we got these cool cars over here. You can customize whatever you want and it's super cheap." You'd go, "That's awesome. Let me buy a car." But the only way it works is because they're stealing other people's cars, putting them in a chop shop and breaking them up. You would go, "Oh, I can't do that. I'm buying a stolen car." But for some reason with AI, people go, "Oh, it's cool because I can hit a button and now I've got a cool image." No way. Sorry. I
Mm.
will never be behind that at all. And the problem is you can create ethical AI. Absolutely. You could create ethical LLMs, but it would require an ex, an exorbitant expenditure of money to pay people to create content specifically to train that LLM on rather than stealing it. And no one wants to do that because it cuts into their profit margin.
Mm.
And that's honestly the basis of my stance on
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
it. Sorry, I gotta take a drink now. I just
No,
ranted for
that's
a minute.
that's good. I mean, it covers a lot of territory that I think I've thought about a lot of these things as well. Look, my youngest daughter is an artist, and she does hand drawn art. She does digital art, and I post some of it, and because I'm proud of her, and and it's cool. And I guess I don't know. She asked me one day. She's like, is AI bad? And I said. I kind of compared it to like I said, what you when you're learning, you look at other people's artwork and you sometimes you imitate that artwork, right? And I'm talking to her. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like that, and honestly, it's funny. It goes back to the topic I was talking to somebody about yesterday, which is innovation versus imitation. Where are
Mhm.
the differences? Where are the lines between innovation and imitation? And so I personally still think there's room for creativity on top of AI without AI. And one of my favorite games to play actually is to see how far I can push AI censorship and get away with like what it doesn't want to generate. It's saying no, and then you just slightly change the query a bit to try and get around it to make it like one day I was
Just
trying to
taking
generate
advantage of AI consent. Oh my God.
I was trying to generate an image of a Grimace from McDonald's in bondage, and it turned out so hysterical. It was the funniest thing. So this is like a game
This
I play.
warrants questions, my friend. There's an issue of why, um, but maybe that's not for right now. Maybe we don't talk about
Yeah,
that right now,
right,
and then
right,
get
right.
deep into what's happening in your brain that made you want to attempt that. But I mean, like, I get it. I've heard all those arguments, and I
It's a
think to
difficult
me,
situation. Yeah, I agree
it,
though.
I
Yeah.
think to me that it just is in a world where, man, I don't want to get too much into this.
Let it rip.
In
Yeah,
a
we can.
world
Sorry, go ahead.
where everything is about profit margin, everything is about the latest get rich quick scheme. AI is just another iteration of the crypto to NFT to here's the next big tech bubble that everyone needs to embrace to get rich, where only the select few at the top are really benefiting from
Yeah.
it. AI, studies have come out. Oh God, I wish I could remember the study right now. Was it Cambridge or Oxford? I think it was Oxford. Recently did a study showing. I think it was Oxford. Anyway, recently showing a study that um, increased use of AI stunts cognitive learning in
Mm,
youth
interesting.
and in adults. Um, it reduces the need to problem solve on your own. Um, Add that to the fact that half the crap that AI spews out is incorrect because it can't think. It is literally just a math predictive engine.
Yeah.
It's like, I think this word should go next to it. How many times is Google going to completely crap the bed on their, Google summaries of things, hey, put glue on pizza, and stuff like that. And this is Google, that's a company that's spending more money than God to develop their AI solution. So if they can't get it right, ain't no one going to get it right.
Yeah.
You take that aside, but I mean, like it's all about hey, here's this cool new thing that doesn't really work as promised. I mean, yeah, there's some things that do work, but
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
think
it
it does.
doesn't
It does
work.
some things really well. Yeah, I think so.
It
But
does
yeah.
something, sure, it
Yeah.
does some things well. The people telling you that you need this and that are forcing corporations to include AI in everything are the same exact people who pushed NFTs.
Hmm.
And when that dried up, what did they do? Well, they moved on. The same people that pushed the NFTs, they were the same people that were ahead of the crypto movement. When that started to dry up, they moved to NFTs, then they moved to AI. And it's the same people that are building the hardware. It's NVIDIA. It's the people that are creating the GPUs necessary to fuel this.
Right.
Well, their profit margin started to dip when crypto started drying up. Oh, now we need to come up with a use case for the next iteration of these GPUs. What are we going to do? Oh, NFTs. That was a bubble that popped fast, thank God. That dropped. Oh well, we got to keep our stock going up. We can't stop. So we got to create a bigger GPU. What's the use case for it? Oh, AI. And now we're going to force everyone into. And the only people getting rich off of this are the hardware people, while the artists are starving.
Yeah.
And I just can't abide by it.
Yeah.
Like I'm just not going to do it.
I'm totally with you there. I mean, I definitely think something needs to be done in that realm to make sure that we protect people, at least in a world where we still live with, like, I don't know, man. There's probably so many topics we could diverge down here because my personal take is like I don't agree with IP. Like and I don't agree with the way our current economy works. I don't agree. So I could call a lot of that in question if things were different. The thing is, things
Sure.
aren't different. And the way things are working now, you're absolutely right. Like there's a lot of people who are not the wrong people are benefiting mostly from it, and the right people are
Yeah.
not benefiting at all from it. And
Right.
but that's kind of the story of our lives, right? Our history is few people taking advantage of the masses.
But
So
and here is all I'm going to say, and then we should probably move on. Is that is that any small thing that you can do as an individual to change a paradigm you don't agree with is an important act of resistance.
sure, sure,
So for me, I disagree with that paradigm wholeheartedly, that the people getting rich on the backs of other people's labor are doing so blatantly, stealing other people's stuff, that for me to go, you know what? Yes, there is a use or two that might be nice. Like absolutely at work, I could 100% fire up an AI chatbot to summarize a meeting.
yeah,
But every time I do that, it is a small step to legitimize a technology that, for the most part, is harmful to others. So I will do the little bit of extra work necessary to summarize that meeting myself rather than hit the easy button, because to me, embracing it legitimizes it even in the slightest bit, and I don't feel that it should be.
yeah. Totally fair. I mean, I make those same choices. Honestly, I resisted AI for a really long time. until it was like it was so invasive and so out there. I had to at least satisfy my curiosity, and I do use it for some things because it
And you
is
got hooked.
it
You got
it
hooked like a crack
well,
dealer gave you some
it
rock for
gives
free.
it does supplement places where I in history before AI even still suffered and couldn't really do well. Like you talked about writing, I suck at writing. So if I want to write something, I definitely need something to look over my shoulder. And when I can't rely on a person to look over my shoulder, it's the next best thing. I mean, I don't take it verbatim. I don't take everything it says as true. All those things. So yeah, I totally get it. That's why I left Facebook, man. I left Facebook because I don't agree with the with the
That's fair.
things that they're doing. I could drive today if I really had to, but I don't drive because I don't want to perpetuate the auto industry. I try and not consume meat because I think the meat industry, I totally
We
get
all have our
those.
thing.
Yeah, I totally get those choices. And
Did you ever watch? I'm gonna shift the topic real quick.
no,
Did
it's
you ever
fine,
watch
cool.
the show The Good Place?
I have, yes.
I feel like everyone is caught in that issue where the world is so complicated that any choice you make is a tangled web of supporting and not supporting a bunch of things that are almost invisible to our naked eye. So the best that any of us can do is just simply try and act ethically and pick your battles because you can't fight every battle.
Yeah, yeah.
So like I 100%, I'm not trying to dog on you for using AI.
I don't take it
Um,
that way at all,
and
so don't worry
and
about
I
it.
appreciate that you got off Facebook and those sorts of things. Like those are the small efforts that people can make that ultimately, in the long run, make a difference. I have to believe that makes a difference. Like I
Mm-hmm.
need to. Otherwise, I just collapse in on myself like a dying star and cry a lot. So I have to assume that
Yeah.
making those choices is important. But AI is just one of the choices that I've made. I just won't
Mm.
do it,
Totally
much to my
fair, man.
company's chagrin. They hate
Totally
me for it.
fair. Totally fair. Um, anyways, Kyle, I think Kyle might have had some questions. I wanted to let her pop in here real quick.
Hi.
No, we can't hear you. You're breaking up like crazy. All right. Um, so, anyways, it's really interesting. We can shift this topic, but and let's see. We could go back
Can
to
you hear
like,
me now?
oh yes, I can hear you
Yes.
now. Yes, yes. What's up?
Okay, wonderful. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm
Hi.
Kyle. Um, I actually have been starting this creative writing. It happens every Tuesday night. Simple prompts, 5-minute exercises, share. And the only one rule is no critiquing. It's good for, I think, everyone to have some sort of creative outlet. And
100%.
I appreciate hearing the importance of morals that you have with it because a lot of people want to take the easy route. And I get it. These are tools that are set up to help. Some of us might have different struggles, whether it's a physical impairment, a mental
Sure.
impairment, what have you. Um, but no, I appreciate you sharing. I had another question, but let me think on it. I lost my train of thought.
No
Yeah, no
worries.
worries.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned the no critique on the creative writing thing. One of the things that took me a long time in life to be comfortable with was sucking at something. Um, I I don't know where it came from in my upbringing, but the need to be excellent at anything I did or it
Mm.
wasn't worth doing was very prominent in my mind. Um, and it took me, man, until probably I was about 40 to kind of break out of that and just be like, you know what, it's okay to do something for fun and be terrible at it. Who cares? Like,
Right, right.
whether it's writing, painting, anything else, not everything has to be something that you present to the world for consumption or critique or for profit. Um, like I, I do enjoy, doing things that I'm really not okay at. And the physical act of doing it while not being good at it, while, while not worrying about the end result allows me to enjoy the process. I feel that
Mm-hmm.
in some regards, AI takes the joy out of learning and getting better at stuff as well,
Mm,
because
True.
it's trying to circumvent the the pains of growth and learning a new skill,
mm.
looking for that reward of, oh, here's a finished polished product, that you honestly didn't have to work for. And I think that devalues the end product greatly and cheats you of the joy of creation.
Absolutely. And it's funny because within the writing, you have an option of sharing, reading it aloud, and we put it in the side chat. And we're our own worst critics. We don't need each other to hear you know, what formulation of sentence structure that you should have, could have, would have done. Because when we hear each other read, it pushes us harder to be better just for ourselves, not for anybody else but ourselves. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
everyone is their own worst critic. Like I will destroy myself much harder than anyone else will over anything I do. Um, I think that's a Gen X quality. I don't know. We're so just rough on ourselves. So yeah, absolutely. I saw you, Brian. You were pointing at your keyboard over your shoulder. Is that
I
y-
suck at music, but I like to play, and it's fun. And
that's all that
oh,
matters,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
it's
all that
healing
matters.
also. It's that whole mindfulness. Like I don't need to do it for other people. I can get in the zone, the auto zone, and just start playing, even though I'm horrible and singing along. And it's rewarding enough for me that I get enough out of it.
That's all you need is if you feel good with the time invested in something. That's all that matters. If the end product is something cool, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
But the time invested in creating anything, I think, is a reward in and of itself. It's funny. So I did back on the East Coast. Like I mentioned earlier, I was doing a little bit of acting and everything else. And the East Coast, it's not a mecca of filmmaking by any stretch of the imagination. Maryland, we're 4 hours from New York, and even that market was pretty small. So I got together with some friends. I was like, hey guys, I'm bored. I want to make something. The only thing people were making in Maryland was either political stuff or crime. Like crime short
Mm,
films and crime films were like, that's what everyone wanted to do. Everyone wanted to be The Wire. Like, I get it. Like, but we already had The Wire. No need to try and do any better than that. And it wasn't a genre that I particularly enjoyed. So I got together with some friends. I was like, hey, look, you're a great writer. This guy over here, like, you're a great cinematographer. Let's all sit down. Let's kind of come up with something. So for a relatively shoestring budget, about I think 8 grand or something like that. We put together a short film, 15-minute short film. It was a fantasy genre piece called The Forgotten. You can still
I
find it on
saw it.
Amazon
Yeah.
Prime. Right. It was us. We shot it in, 2 weekends. It was 4 days. Had a shoot. Had a decent crew. My rule was everyone gets paid. No volunteer labor except for myself, the writer, and the cinematographer. We're not going to get paid ourselves. Everyone else. So I think we had at one point I think a biggest day was we had like 28 people on set. Like it was a legit like little production. Um, but it was just us going, hey, let's do a thing and see if we can do it. Shoot it, edit it, throw it up on Amazon, whatever. We made a little thing. We knew, like, or trust me, we knew all the issues with it. And we put it out there. And the comments from people I knew that saw it, were nitpicking the smallest thing like it was Game of Thrones with a $20 million an episode budget. And I started realizing that people that don't create things that haven't invested the time to do what you're saying, to just try something, to take the time and try it, have no idea how hard it is to come up with anything that's even slightly worth putting out to the public. It was a terribly flawed short film, have no doubt. But it was good enough to go, hey, we spent some money on it. We'll throw it up on Amazon and see if we can recoup some of our investment, which by the way, Amazon doesn't pay much. So, my $3 a month royalty checks are not, I'm never going to make up the money spent on that short film in my lifetime. But
Never say never.
just, oh, trust me, it's never going to happen because
Let's
the
see.
royalties keep going down and down. It's not like the rates get any better. Uh, um, but yeah, just like taking the time to make something is rewarding.
Yeah, yeah.
People need to just enjoy the process. If I sat back and I listened to all the comments from the people afterwards, they were like, "Oh, well, in this one scene, I couldn't hear this one line of dialogue." Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have three sound guys on set for our $8,000 budget. It was just one guy with a boom mic running with us in the forest. We did our best, buddy.
I
Or,
know that's how they sound too, with that exact pitch and tone. Thank you for demonstrating that.
no worries. I mean, or like I had comments about the costumes. Well, the costumes weren't quite frayed and worn enough. They looked a little too new. Yeah, they were rentals, jackwad. Like, I didn't have I didn't have the budget to go out and buy costumes and weather them for months ahead of time, like Lord of the Rings did. If I listened to all those comments, I would never want to make anything again. So you got to go back to the time spent making it. That's the valuable thing and the enjoyment that I have had doing that. Like I've got one of the pictures right over my monitor right here is our cast photo. That was 4 days of long hours, lots of work. It was the middle of summer. We're sweat is gross out. Wearing these thick gaminsons the whole time, plus layers of stuff and boots and running through the woods and just sweating our everything off. And it was miserable at the time and editing, just long hours of editing and sound work and everything else. But it was also worth it because it was the act of doing something that I enjoyed with people I enjoyed.
Mm.
That's it. Like that was the value. Everything else, whatever,
Yeah, yeah. Well, so here the biggest thing for me has been getting over the self-conscious nature, that self-critic, just putting things out there. Like, is that something you've always just been comfortable with, or did you have to take work to get
No,
over it,
I'm
or?
still not comfortable with it, man.
Yeah,
I hate the sound of my voice.
yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't anymore.
Me too.
I used to.
I still hate my voice,
I,
but yeah, go ahead.
I, You've
Bring
only
up
been running a
here.
show for a little bit. So I did a comic book news and review podcast for years for a website.
Cool.
So every other week for like 3 years or whatever, we ran this show. And you can't find it online anymore. We dropped the hosting when the website went down right before COVID. But and I was also the sound editor for it, because I enjoy editing as a process. I kind of like it. For the first 6 months, that was painful, and then I just did it so much that I got numb to my own voice. Um, so you'll get over that. But no, I'm very self-conscious. I greatly suffer from imposter syndrome, um, cripplingly so. I've been doing my job now for 20 years. 21 years I've been doing IT work.
Mm.
Made a pretty substantial life shift and moved into IT um, in my early 30s. I still, no matter how many certifications I have under me, no matter how well I've done over the years, I still wonder when the adult in the room is going to realize I'm not supposed to be there, and that I shouldn't be doing this. When I act, it is really tough for me to get out of that headspace and get in the moment. Um, I went to did some training. So I started acting late 30s, probably. I got the bug. I just realized that my job was crushing my soul, and I needed to do something different. So I kind of leveraged what I already do. So I've been doing martial arts my whole life. Um, so really good at like taking falls and things like that without getting hurt. I could kind of flip around like a Mexican luchador, no problem. Um, so I, reached out to some local film productions that I saw at a local convention. I was like, hey, if you ever need any stunt work, so that's kind of how I got started. And they were like, yeah, no, they're always looking for stunt guys. Um, And then quickly they were like, oh, you know what? You're kind of funny and you have a good look. You ever thought about doing on camera stuff? I was like, yeah, I thought about it, but shyness. Just immediately I shrank down, like, oh God, people will see me. Um, but I did it. And then I realized I really liked it. So I started went to the conservatory program at the DC Studio Theater Acting Conservatory in Washington, DC.
Wow.
And my first couple theater teachers were like, hey, you're in your head so much that this is not working. And it took a lot of work for me to be able to kind of get to a headspace where I don't see the camera anymore, don't see the audience anymore. I'm only focused on my scene partners. And even after that, it still takes me a couple takes to kind of get there because the whole time I'm worried. I'm like, what if people judge me? Like that's I just can't. Ugh. And man, it goes back to just a life, a childhood of being mercilessly bullied and things like that. I just don't want to. If you don't present yourself, you're,
Sorry.
I have
Done.
no idea what's happening over there, but man, okay. But yeah, like if you don't expose yourself, you're not in danger. So it was a natural self-protection of all childhood trauma to kind of build this bubble around myself. And I still am not over it. I still don't like watching myself on film.
Yeah.
Um, I I can hear my own voice now. I can read my words that I write now, but even still, man, I don't know. I get very self-conscious
Mm.
because I'm still worried. You know, 50, 52-year-old, 51-year-old, God, I almost aged myself another year. What am I doing? 51-year-old Jeff is, still worried and trying to protect 8-year-old Jeff. Like it's the saddest thing in the world, but at least I recognize where it comes from now. But yeah, it's just thinking about it. I'm sweating now. I got the sweats just thinking about people seeing me and
Yeah.
judging me. So yeah, it's hard, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think I've worked pretty hard at it, and I've gotten it to a point where I've got it under control. But I think I've gone as far as I can with it, and I just got to kind of deal with it's just who I am. I'm sheltered that way. Self-protective shelter I put around myself is just kind of something I'm gonna live with and die with. But
Yeah. Well, you said a
did I
lot, and
answer the question?
yeah,
I
it
don't know.
does,
I
and
ran.
I resonate like everything you're going through. I'm like, yep, me too, yep, me too, yep, me too. You've probably
I think a lot
taken,
of people.
yeah, you've taken those challenges in different directions and sort of knocked down barriers where you did. And I never got into acting, but I've knocked down my own barriers in those same ways that that I'm self-conscious. I've definitely had imposter syndrome. And it definitely comes from our childhood, our experiences, the things we grew up with and learned, the pressures that were put on us and stuff. So,
Do you feel like an adult?
no,
I,
actually, I
I,
was going
I,
to tell you one of my favorite sayings is that we're children with experience. We're not adults. We're never adults.
it's funny. I, so I do a lot of for my job, right? I have to go visit customers sometimes, and I speak to large groups of fairly successful and uh, high up government officials sometimes and things like that for different civilian agencies and whatever. And recently, just anecdotally, so I one of my customers is NASA, my coolest customer. I get to go talk to NASA. Like that's awesome, right?
That's pretty
So
awesome. Yeah.
I go down to this room at NASA. Um, I'm standing at like a little podium that's got the NASA symbol on it. I was like, this is so cool. Like little me was like, oh, speaking to a room full of scientists, that work on the International Space Station. Um, and I'm talking to them, kind of walking them through different stuff, kind of, having a back and forth. And the entire time, inside, I'm like, when are the adults, the audience in my head, the adults going to, realize that I'm just winging it. I'm just BSing it. Um, I'm, and technically I am a little bit, because I kind of fly fast and loose when I work, just because that's my creative process.
Sure. Sure.
Um, but I do know what I'm doing. Like I've been doing it 20 years. Like intellectually, I know what I'm talking about, but I'm waiting for them to catch me or get me in a gotcha. Um, and then we go out to lunch. Like, so I talk with them for 2 hours. We go out to have a lunch. There's probably one person in that room that's my age, and everyone else is at least 10 to 15 years younger than me. And I'm still viewing them as the adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't understand why. And I always wonder, do other people feel that way too? Like it's fascinating to me. And I don't know if it's a Gen X thing, I don't know if it's just a generational thing, or if everyone experiences this, but it freaks me out every time I catch myself. Like I'm older than these fools. I am the adult in the room, as terrifying as that might be.
I think that's the healthiest way to go about it. I mean, I think the people who want to declare that they're adults and they've figured it all out and they're the authority figures and whatever they want to declare themselves as, I think they're the ones that are deluded for the most part. You know,
Fair. That's
it's
fair.
the
That's a
humility,
good way to look at it.
it's the humility, the fallibility, the acceptance that there is no, humans want to draw these hard lines for some reason. We want to categorize things, and if they don't cleanly categorize, then we start to get like Jojo the Clown, from from Tommy Boy. Um, they're
I
gonna
was
fight
not
everything
expecting a
because
Tommy
that's
Boy
not right.
reference today, but bravo. Bravo.
So yeah. Look, I've maybe we can have another show sometime and talk about some philosophy because of
Oh, I love it.
I was stuck in the rat race for a really long time and didn't really have the leisure time to start thinking about things in other academic realms. I was stuck in computers and IT. I think you and I pretty much started our career roughly at the same time in the same place. I might have been at one company prior for a couple weeks, but you and I both worked at Tech Systems, Allegis Group at some point, right? Yeah. And we
Yeah.
crossed
Yeah.
over like slightly. I think we worked there at
Yeah.
the same time for a
Real,
very short period of time.
yeah.
So
Really
yeah.
slightly. I was working there I was doing contracting work for them. I wasn't working at the headquarters. So yeah.
Now, did you go to
Then I
college?
moved then I moved into the headquarters for a while before the big tech bubble burst and layoffs and all that jazz.
Yeah. Did you go to college or did you just kind
Uh,
of start? You did college? College? No.
No, college is
Ooh,
for suckers.
the lack of
No,
college brothers.
I went to I did a semester of college to appease my parents and to verify for myself it was for me. Like I struggled in school. Um, I was academically gifted but I was
Systematically challenged.
I didn't have the what's the right I didn't have the discipline for
Yeah.
school. I was very undisciplined as a youth. Um, so I was easily distracted. I didn't have ADD or anything like that. Like I can
Mm.
focus, when it's find something that I enjoy and things like that. Um, I just didn't like it and I didn't want to be there. Um, so I wasn't sure if college was going to be a different experience than, kind of that middle school, high school experience I dreaded so much.
Yeah.
So I did a semester at Howard Community College, did like 2 classes or whatever, just to give it a shot and realized it just wasn't for me. I said this, and also it didn't really track with what I was doing. So coming out of high school, I was convinced I was going to go to art school. So I had applied to a couple art schools. I was like, you know what? I think that's where I want to go with life. I want to be a graphic artist. I want to design things and draw for a living. And then I had a late night in the mirror talk with myself where I went, you know what, Jeff? And this might have been imposter syndrome talking. I don't know where I would be now had I have continued down that path. But I was like, okay, Jeff, you're one of the better artists at our high school. Our high school, the high school that went to had an amazing art program. Like I don't know why they invested so much in art there, but I'm glad they did. Like I had 2 hours of art a day. Like who does that? Both my junior and senior year. It's weird, right? Um, Also contributing to why I probably wasn't great at school. Um, but uh, but I was like, you know what? Am I good enough to go to art school where everyone else in that school is also going to be kind of the better people coming out of high school. And, kind of that big fish, little pond, like how big is this fish really going to be when I go to, and like, man, I started getting the nerves about, am I going to be able to make a living? Because I knew even back then that that's not the most lucrative profession. So I backed out last minute. I'm like, I'm not going to do art school. I'm not doing it. And I was teaching martial arts full time, straight out of high school. And the instructor that I had at the time had two locations, one of which was floundering over in PG County, over in Bowie, Maryland. So I kind of transferred and I started teaching over there full time after high school over that summer out of school. And they were struggling with it. They weren't happy. The co-owners weren't happy with it. And just on a lark, I said, hey, if I can get the money together and I buy this place, will you give me a deal and just kind of stay involved and things like that? But I will take the day-to-day operations out of your hands and the struggle that you're having. And they said yes. And I went and scraped together loans from a bunch of different places at 19
Mm.
and bought the school. And I did that for 7 years, I think. And so, I went to, I went to that first semester of college because I was teaching at night, running the school at night, so I could do college in the morning, early afternoon. I went to that first semester to took up business classes, realized it wasn't for me, and then just kind of focused on running my business for the next 7 years before I sold it off and then moved into the IT field, just because I realized that, again, going back to the discipline, you know, uh, I didn't have the discipline to do all the things I needed to do to run a successful business. Like I
Right.
loved the teaching. I hated the running the
The business
business.
aspect.
I
Yeah.
hated having to deal with the state on all the health club, stuff, all the different, rules and regulations they would enact every year and you'd have to respond to. I hated dealing with the back end, you know, chasing people down for delinquent payments. Like I hated all that stuff.
Mm.
So, um, someone bought the building our school was in, and it gave me a perfect out to kind of sell the business off and just, kind of walk away. And the only thing that I was good at was computers because I just was lucky enough to have been working with them my whole life. My dad was a mechanical engineer for Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, designing satellites and things like that. And he was, so he was doing like the early mainframe stuff way back before personal computers were a thing. And right when we moved, right before we moved to where we grew up, when I was about 10, he got a Atari 800, which was the first home computer that had a basic cartridge you could put in and program DOS.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the rule. I could play video games on it if I also spent time learning how to program. So I had been working with computers my whole life, and just by luck of being in the right place at the right time, kind of a Malcolm Gladwell outlier kind of story. You know, I had the skills necessary at the time to kind of fit into the industry where it was at the time, where there weren't really computer science degrees that would help you. So I was able to make that transition pretty quickly. And yeah, God, I talk a lot. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. That's perfect because I don't talk a lot, and I need people who can carry
Kind
conversation.
of hard if you're running a show to
So
not talk. There, we
I'm
might have to
trying
work
to
on that.
learn. I'm once again I'm attacking those things that I'm not good at. That it's that whole effort of this show here. But yeah, man, our backgrounds are quite alike. Of course, I changed probably for different reasons. Like right around the time you were shifting into IT, I was because I just got married and had my first kid. Um, so, and of course, probably for similar reasons, you're thinking, I don't know if I can make a career, a life, a stable home for a family, myself, moving forward.
Yeah.
So, IT was kind of burgeoning in a sense at those times. And I took advantage of that, and I had a 20 plus, long career. So yeah, that's a lot of that same stuff. But hey, look, it's like 3:52 now. We got 8 minutes left. I was thinking maybe we'll cut it off at the hour mark.
Oh my God, you've been talking so
Yeah,
long.
it's been quick. I'd love to go longer, but I'd
Right.
rather do this again and maybe
We'll do a part two.
cover
Yeah.
cover other topics whenever you're free. It doesn't have to be right away. But
Sure, man.
so just to sign off here, I wanted to give you an opportunity to just replug a bunch of the stuff that you're doing, you're interested in, just before we kill it. So
Sure, absolutely. So again, I'm Jeff Mueller. Online, I go by the Mighty Jerd. You can find me if you're on the socials. You can find me on Blue Sky at the Mighty Jerd at bluesky.social. You can also find me on Instagram at the Mighty Jerd. I don't really post it that much, and that's probably going away soon. Thanks, Meta. The as far as projects go, if you're interested in the fantasy genre and you have 15 minutes to spare, you can check out The Forgotten on Amazon Prime. Of course, that is a common movie title, which we didn't know when we wrote that, so you might have to search for it. But yeah, a little short 15-minute fantasy flick I produced back in Maryland with some friends. That's always a fun time. And if you're interested in role-playing game stuff, you can find some of my writing at Storytellers Forge. You can find the Black Ballad, which is a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition full campaign set after your character dies. Kind of what happens in the afterlife and in ways that you can continue your adventure after a dragon bites your face off. You can also find my work in some other stuff out there. You can find Encounters Under the Shadow of the Dragon Queen on DM's Guild. If you're running that new Dragonlance adventure for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you can find some weapons and stuff that I've written, magical items, and Jeff Stevens games, Weapons of Lore. That Kickstarter, I believe, is still running right now. It might have just finished, but of course you can buy that aftermarket. And yeah, if you're just interested in following all the stuff I'm doing, you can check out jerdproductions.com, which kind of is a repository for all the different things I'm working on day to day.
awesome. I'm going to add some of that stuff into the description of the video, and the other two things, the Story Forge and what was the other one, that they're both in the video description. Apologize, old brain. Um, can't quite remember it all off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
word, brain
Um,
faulty.
but I'll try and update a lot of that stuff in there, so in case people actually ever watch
Great.
this, will they'll be able to find your stuff. I think that's great. Thank you for joining me today. Let's do this again. We covered a lot of stuff where I think we dipped in and out. We scratched the surface. We can dig a lot deeper into some topics, I think, but maybe make them a
Sure.
little more focused. And you know, I'll take you on about AI or something like that. So.
Fair enough.
It's been awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for anybody who has watched, who's going